Well, it's always a pleasure to talk college football with Cole Cubelic, who does an amazing job covering college football and has for a long time. The former Auburn Tiger is a chief reporter for the SEC Network's football coverage. He played with the Tigers in the late 90s and early 2000s, and he's with us to chop it up and talk a little 49er draft. Cole, thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me.
Well, let's get right into it. I mean, the 49ers, this was a crucial draft for the 49ers, and they went with Mykel Williams out of the chute from Georgia. And, you know, it's funny. The reports or the grades on the Niner draft are all over the place. PFF panned it. Chris Sims said he loved it. Mykel Williams is an interesting guy. He's great against the run, but he's 118th in the country this year in pass rush win rate in true pass sets for edge rushers in this class. What was your grade on Mykel Williams? He was obviously great as a freshman.
I didn't love it at 11. I'll be honest with you. There are parts of it that you understand, specifically when you stand next to him, plain and simple. And then you see the way that he's able to move on film, the athleticism that he brings. He is just a mammoth of a human being, kind of in that Chris Canty, Calais Campbell mold of just should not be able to do those things at that size. I wonder exactly where his home is. I don't think he's loose enough to be sort of a 4-down defensive end. Could he give you reps there occasionally? Yes. I don't think he's too much different physically than a guy the 49ers drafted out of the SEC a couple of years ago in Javon Kinlaw. As far as just frame, size, and then overall ability, I think he's a little bit more athletic. I don't think he has as much S to him as Javon Kinlaw did. He's been banged up, so availability has been a little bit of an issue also. And then you just cannot escape productivity. You can't. The guy hadn't reached double-digit sacks in his entire career at Georgia. Has he done some good things? Has he flashed? Absolutely. Is it in the tank? 100% it is. There are physical gifts inside of a frame that just not a lot of human beings are going to have. So those unteachables, uncoachables are there for Mykel Williams. The wingspan is gigantic, so batted ball, something that he's going to be able to give you an advantage with. When he does strike and shed, he's good at it. It just shows up at very different times on film. So that would be my biggest concern. I understand the need. I understand why you attack it, and I don't think this was a weird draft with sort of edge and defensive tackle. Receiver were the only position drafted more than defensive tackles in this draft. But I saw a lot of guys listed as edge that I kind of looked at and said, like Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. Like, I don't see him as an edge. I see him spending more time inside than I do outside, but he offers that versatility. I think it was a heavier edge class, which means to me they'll probably spend more time on third downs inside and maybe moving around a little bit. And some of your 3-down stuff is where I think maybe Mykel could be a little bit more valuable as an outside guy that still has bulk and then can give you maybe a little bit more wiggle inside in your third and long situations where he's still able to hold up. So I don't know exactly where he fits into San Francisco's scheme, but they have liked the length along the defensive line for a while. And that part of this will not be any different.
You know, a lot of people making the comp to Michael Bennett, the former Seattle, multi-gap dominator, if you want to call him that, back in 2013, 14, 15. I know the Niners would like to line up Mykel Williams all over the place. They like to play a lot of games up front with Chris Kasarik. So maybe they're seeing some multi-positional value there. You mentioned Shamar Stewart. I think Williams and Stewart are both classic examples of guys that went in the first round based on traits. Who do you think has the better traits? Who do you think has the better career coming up?
Well, here's the difference is, and a lot of times you can't just go by box scores. Not accusing you of that, saying that you are. When I watch Shamar Stewart, he impacts games. You put the Missouri game on and you'll see him forcing runs to bounce back or forcing runs to spill outside. You'll see pockets dented where the quarterback has to move and get off platform to be able to complete a pass. He forces quarterbacks to move in the pocket when there's a little bit of pressure there, even from off the edge. And then, two, a lot of times in those games that you mentioned that San Francisco runs a lot of, he could be the penetrator where he'll disrupt things to the point that loop man is able to get home. So I see him impact games a lot, not with maybe a tackle for loss, not with a sack, or not even just a tackle, but forcing things to happen offensively more than I did Mykel Williams. Now, the frame with Williams a little bit different, a little bit more length, bigger wingspan, but Shamar Stewart's a guy that just, I think, adds a little bit more quickness, a little more burst, short area specifically, and saw him impact games on a little more regular basis.
I'm trying to, to buy into the Mykel Williams pick because it's now their pick. But, I had some concerns as well as far about, as the lack of production. And I do think he'll be a good edge setter, but I think everything else is going to have to be coached up, and we'll have to see. It's kind of a wait and see. What'd you think of Alfred Collins, the big defensive tackle from Texas? If you look at this guy on the hoof, you just watch him and you see 6'6", 330. He doesn't look, to me, he looks like he could be 285, 290. Yeah. That's how kind of proportional he is at 6'6", 330. What'd you think of Collins when you saw him this year?
He had a great year. He really did. And he was somebody that, as the season went on for that Texas defense, keep in mind, the big question for the Texas defense was Murphy and Sweat were gone, and they couldn't replace those guys. And that was going to be tumultuous in the middle of the defense. They weren't going to be able to survive. It wasn't going to be close. And all of a sudden, he and Vernon Broughton almost every week just kept showing up and showing up and showing up. And Alfred Collins, a guy that kind of similar to those two, not as big. I mean, those guys are, you're talking 340, 360, but can hold the point of attack, can anchor when you need him to, but just loose enough to be able to move around and do some things to be problematic. So I think he is sort of today's NFL defensive tackle. Now, you're still going to get teams that just want that giant, girthy anchor, tone setter, can get in there. Nobody's going to move him, the immovable object, kind of like a Kenneth Grant that the Dolphins took, even though he has a little bit more wiggle than some of the guys maybe did in my era. But I think Alfred Collins gives you the best of both worlds. Now, I'm not going to say Booger McFarland Warren Sapp quickness, but he can get inside of a gap and penetrate at times if he needs to. But there were numerous times on film where he had his man in the backfield. And similar to what we talked about with Shamar Stewart, forcing things to happen. May not have gone down as a tackle for loss or a sack, but he made things change offensively for the ball carrier, whether that was a quarterback, running back, whoever that was. And that's where his value really came, is that he would dent the offensive line on a regular basis. And I thought the cool thing about him is I thought he got better and better as the season went on. Both those two did really inside for that Texas defense, which was a great defense really across the board. I think they have the best inside linebacker in the league coming back. They're going to have two great edge defenders that are back next year. One was a true freshman in Colin Simmons last year. But those two guys inside, they kind of set the tone. And Collins just got better and better and better. I love seeing that from a college football player that just sort of figures out the technique, figures out the fundamentals as the season goes on. Shows me that they're continuing to work on their craft. They're not going through the motions and not just relying on their physical gifts from God to go out there and try to make things happen on a football field.
Texas only allowed 2.9 a carry in the two seasons that when Collins was actually on the field. So he is a big war daddy in the middle. I know you watch a lot of SEC, but a couple of these guys that weren't in the SEC on day two, I don't know if you have thoughts, but Nick Martin, the linebacker from Oak State, or Upton Stout, the corner from Western Kentucky. I really like Martin. I mean, 4.5 speed, 26 reps at 225, and I kind of think he's the kind of a poster boy for the 2025 linebacker, which is no longer 250, 260 Matt Millen neck roll. They're now 220, 225 converted safety, look like a safety, but move like move the way a safety used to move and the way the linebackers move today in the NFL, 4.5 speed.
Yeah, and I do believe that San Francisco has had some success recently with a little bit shorter linebackers. You go back and he's not going to give you the Patrick Willis length where his wingspan looks like it's 7.5 feet. And, he's just able to run and he looks like, he could play defensive end. But active is the first thing that I think of when I watch Nick Martin. Obviously they had Arkansas early in the year, so I watched them there and then had a chance to see him as the year went on a little bit more. Didn't dial into him every week, but definitely stuck out when you watch him on film. Like you mentioned, today's linebacker sideline to sideline is not going to be an issue, not going to be a liability in coverage, a little bit shorter in stature. And I think that's probably the only real issue. And where that comes into play is getting off blocks. You still have to use your arms to extend and strike and get off blocks. And sometimes being able to remove balls from those passing lanes, not as effective as a longer linebacker, but somebody that I think can get in there and do some different things and do things well. He'll probably contribute on all the different teams. special teams. I mean, punt cover, kick cover, things like that. So he'll add value to the roster spot. When you can run like that and you have spent legitimate time in coverage, that's going to be a benefit when you're playing linebacker, specifically with the quick game and where it's going in the NFL.
I don't know if you've seen Stout. I mean, Stout's kind of interesting. Small nickel corner who can probably, it's funny that heard a coach this week talk about him, said, man, this guy's a stud. Practices hard, plays with a ton of confidence, turned down a lot of money in the portal from Michigan to stay at Western Kentucky. I don't know if you saw Upton Scout this year, but I mean, very, very strong player at 5'9", 180. Guy had 21 reps on the bench.
Well, I think the thing that you want at corner is just a guy that'll fight and a guy that's scrappy. And then you have to have that mentality of, all right, we gave up a 40-yard pass. We got to come back and do it again. We can't let that happen one more time. And he's got that fighter mentality inside of him, a little bit smaller in stature again, but I think he makes up with mentality, demeanor, attitude. A solid corner. I think it was a good pick there, specifically to get him late in the third with a couple of corners that came off early. You wondered who was still going to be available. So I thought it was a good value pick for San Francisco there.
The next two picks I thought were really exciting for the 49ers. They got C.J. West out of Indiana, Cole, and the guy started at Kent State. He transferred over. He kind of reminds me of a former SEC player and former Niner, DJ Jones. Just very, very strong, but underrated quickness. West has 52 stops at or behind the line of scrimmage since 2021, most among all FBS defensive tackles. The hand strength is really what stood out to me. What did you think of C.J. West when you saw him at Indiana this year?
I've only seen a little bit of him. I took a peek at him just in my draft coverage prep. When he gets those hands on you, he's nasty. The problem is getting him on you because the arm length is not going to be ferocious. It's not going to be something that's overly problematic for most NFL offensive linemen. And the other part is just, too, like there are certain guys that I see on film and I immediately think to myself, that's the guy that I hated to try to block because they're shorter in stature. They're going to always have that low center of gravity. The pad level just physically can't get too high. They're not like a Deion Walker out of Kentucky where when they stand straight up, you're looking at their neck. So he can't get high to where the point that I automatically get leverage on him. And he's got good lateral quickness. That quick burst to go to the left or to the right, he can hurt you that way. So actually, he's stout at the point of attack, but I kind of like him on the move just a little bit more, which what you brought up earlier with that San Francisco defense could be a value.
Cole Cubelic with us on the Yuma guest line as we chop it up on the NFL draft, chief reporter for the SEC Network's football coverage and a guy that we've had on KNBR for years and years and really enjoy his coverage. Jordan Watkins, I saw the Arkansas game where this guy went off and it was just an amazing performance.
Yeah.
And when Trey Harris went down with the injury, this kid stepped up. If you look at him just right away, you think running back, but then you see the 4.37 speed and the production, and he was the only FBS player with 5 catches of 60 yards or more this year. Yeah. I know a lot of Niner fans, a lot of the draft people are banging on the Niners for taking Watkins here because he was projected as an undrafted guy or as a late day 3 guy, and they took him in the 4th round. But, man, this guy I think is going to be a much better pro than people think. What did you think of Watkins at Ole Miss?
Well, the first thing is production. And I think we get away from that word maybe a little bit too much this day and age when we're talking about the draft. We mentioned it with Mykel Williams a little bit earlier. My biggest concern with him is just consistent production not there. Jordan Watkins gave you that. He was not afraid to work the middle of the field. Catch and run can be a strength of his. A lot of the intermediate stuff, he can turn those into explosive plays. And I think he adjusts well on the deep ball. There are a lot of these guys that are just track guys that can run one direction straight down the field. Locating the football becomes problematic. Yeah, if it's right in the breadbasket, they're going to be okay. But when to slow down, when to speed up, how to go east-west to locate the football and not just catch it, but to give yourself the best opportunity to make that catch. I think the best receivers know how to put their body in a spot where it's most advantageous for them to go make the catch, not just have the hands to make the catch. And I feel like Watkins is able to do that. We saw him line up in a lot of different places in this Ole Miss offense. Lane used him different ways. I don't think he's going to be the guy you want to hand the ball to behind the line of scrimmage as much as you did Deebo Samuel, but he gives you the ability in high percentage touches, which I mean quick throws, screens, obviously a slant, and maybe even a touch or two behind the line of scrimmage where he can turn those into explosive plays. He's got that gear. to be able to do that. And not a receiver that I think really shies away from contact. Not that I would put him in the Hines Ward category where he's going to be out there trying to decleat linebackers, but not someone that you feel like fears contact when he's on the football field.
It's funny. The 49ers and Bobby Turner and the Shanahans always have a certain type of running back, and they always seem like they can find guys that fit their system late in the draft, sometimes after the draft. They got a couple backs this year. One was Jordan James from Oregon. The other was Corey Kiner from Cincinnati, who started at LSU and then played 1 year there and then transferred. A real talented guy, but they're very similar body types, 5'9", 210, great contact balance guys. James has never fumbled and 388 carries, and Kiner is he's just got great contact balance. He just refuses to go down upon first contact. What'd you think of those two backs? Have you seen either of them?
Kiner a little bit more bowling ball-ish than James. Yeah, similar build, but I feel like James carries it a little bit better. He's super shifty, and he has great patience, great anticipation. There's so many backs that just take the football and run 100 miles an hour. I actually think early in his LSU career is one of the problems with Corey Kiner is just the understanding of we don't need to hit our head on the goalpost on every run. 2nd and 4 is a win. 2nd and 2 is a win. It doesn't necessarily have to be a touchdown. There were similar issues that I've talked to Steve Sarkisian with Najee Harris about early at Alabama. Like he wanted to score a touchdown on every touch. That's just not real. It's not happens. You have to help our offense and help our football team situationally be in the best spots possible. I think James rides his blocks extremely well. I think he presses the line of scrimmage. I studied a lot of the Oregon offensive line the last few years. I don't intentionally go and watch a ton of running backs, but I've seen a lot of Jordan James because I've been watching those 2 tackles that came out this year and offensive linemen that they've had out the last couple of years. More shifty than you would imagine at over 205 pounds. And more durable, too. I mean, he takes a lot of contact in that scheme, in that system. He does a lot of work in between the tackles, even though it looks like a lot of it's outside of the tackle. So doesn't shy away from contact. Like you said, not a liability putting the ball on the ground. With Corey Kiner, I do think he's a little more north-south. He's got a great spin move. One of the things that I always stuck out when he was at LSU is he'll make you look bad with that spin move that he's got. And then bouncing off contact. I think the yards after contact for him are something that's going to be a major plus. He showed a couple of flashes at LSU early in his career when I thought, all right, I need to write this guy's name down. Corey Kiner, we're going to remember him. And then he goes to Cincinnati and back to that word that we already brought up, production. He found ways to gain yards. So I think he's a quality back, and to get him in free agency is a really nice get, in my opinion.
Man, it was a really nice get for us to get you because you know these guys like the back of your hand. Did you see Kate State?
I want to add this too on Kiner and James.
Yeah.
Well, just to be perfectly honest with you, if this was not the deepest running back class that I believe we've ever seen, I don't think Jordan James is there in the 5th, and I think Kiner's drafted, like plain and simple.
Yeah.
This was a running back draft that people expected more than 30 backs to potentially be drafted. It's the deepest I've ever seen. I mean, you get into the rankings, and you're looking at 28, 29, 30, and they're 1,000-yard rushers, multiple seasons, like Jarquez Hunter, Ollie Gordon, guys that are just produced over time in college football and probably going to be good pros. And you get past 25 and look at those rankings, no matter who it was, you're thinking, that guy can play. That guy can play ball. He's going to make it in the NFL. Even if he's not a feature back, he'll be on a team for a long time. So I think even more value there when you look at some of these backs were pushed way later in this draft than they needed to be because the position was so deep.
No, it's a great point. Some of my favorite backs went really late. I mean, Taj Brooks from Texas Tech.
No way he should be there in the 7th round. Literally no way.
Kyle Monangi from Rutgers
he's a solid
great
player.
Contact balance. He went in the 7th round. The Eagles got Montrell Johnson as an undrafted player.
Just an absolute grinder. Like when you watch Montrell Johnson play, and the Eagles run a lot of that zone scheme now. They're going to run the stretch play, and they're going to run inside zone. Montrell, great patience. He's a little bit of an upright runner, but it's not like that hasn't been successful in the NFL before. I mean, Eddie George is a borderline Hall of Famer running upright. Like Montrell runs in a similar way, but just wants physicality, like literally seeks out contact. And he did it at Lafayette with Billy. Then he goes to Florida in the same scheme. So he just has that feel for the zone scheme of how to wait, put that foot in the ground, get north and south, and bounces off defenders. So Montrell Johnson, another one who I love. I loved him at ULL. I loved him at Florida. I can And, we're talking about a team here in San Francisco that's had some success with those guys that played for the Raging Cajuns too.
Yeah.
Come off the board late in the draft and made some money. So I think Montrell Johnson is a great fit for Philly, and I think he'll probably be on that roster for a while. You'll see him be productive.
You mentioned Raging Cajuns. The Niners signed Kenny Almendarez from the Raging Cajuns to compete with Jake Moody. I don't know if you've seen if you scout the kickers, but man, Niner fans, Jake Moody has made Niner fans very, very nervous with his misses.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have not seen the tape on the kickers.
No problem.
I try to avoid at all costs.
How about K-State? Did you see K-State at all this year? Marquise Siegel, Lynch drafted him in day 2, a 4.37 safety. How about Curtis Rourke, the Indiana quarterback who started at Ohio and transferred? They grabbed him on day 3, and I was very surprised that Shanahan drafted him. But man, listening to the call he made to him, sounds like he has a real affinity for Rourke in his game.
There's some Brock Purdy in there. There really is. Leveling the football is an absolute strength of his. Also think about a lot of the RPO play action game that Indiana ran, similar to what you're going to see there in San Francisco. Come off that fake, anticipation, timing, but understanding where the ball's supposed to go, and then placing that ball where the receiver is supposed to be. There are a lot of the traits that are going to be needed with what Curtis Rourke has been successful with that are going to be asked for in that offense. I thought he'd be drafted earlier than this. I think he can be a great pro. I think he throws a good ball, and kind of similar to Brock Purdy, his strength is not just can you throw it through a brick wall. He throws a beautiful ball. He understands ball placement. Timing, anticipation, I think, is the strength of his. Very strong in the pocket, deliberate, upright in the pocket when delivering the football. Never looks timid or confused. Like, he just has a full – I always talk about game manager. We use that a lot, and I hate that phrase. I talk more about operating the offense, and can you be a great operator of your offense? And that's what he was at Indiana last year. So I think Curtis Rourke can be a pro for a while. Now, whether he becomes a starter or not, so much of that depends on situation and timing. But I thought it was a good value pick in the 7th for San Francisco. I really did.
2 last ones before we let you go. Connor Colby and Junior Bergen were their late picks. I kind of like Colby. I mean, he doesn't fit everybody's system, but I think he fits the Niners zone scheme. He's got some mobility, and he 50 starts, and the guy's only 22. I would not be surprised if Colby finds his way into their lineup. And Junior Bergen, it's funny, the Niners' new special teams coach, Brant Boyer, supposedly has been talking up Junior Bergen from Montana. And he's a great return guy, but he doesn't have 4.3 speed. So I'm really eager to see what he looks like this summer.
Well, a lot of time those return guys, it's more of a field than just speed, because I can give you numerous track guys in college football that coaches have attempted to make their return specialists that just, let's be honest, probably most of them didn't really want the contact and try to get away from that. But it's more about vision and feel and timing, when to get north and south, when to get to full speed, allowing some of those blocks to be set up. So there's a real skill for understanding. And that's why certain guys, whether it's Devin Hester, who does have that speed, or Dante Hall, who didn't have that speed, but just the understanding of when to go, how to go, and when to make it work. As far as Connor Colby goes, I like this pick. I'm fine with the developmental sort of offensive lineman later in the draft, because I think Colby could maybe be a swing lineman, not just a swing tackle. He could be a tackle or guard. Now, his length, his height kind of works against him when he's at guard a little bit. But as you stated, the run schemes are almost identical with what he's been doing at Iowa and what he's going to be asked to do in San Francisco. So he'll be a great fit. And the other part is, like, there's a physical portion of that San Francisco football team. There's an edge to them. You just know it. That's what they're going to be on both sides of the ball. They're going to come at you a different way. And you don't play offensive line at Iowa and not have that. You just don't. Like, you're not soft and starting 50 games playing offensive line at Iowa. So the mentality, the behavioral aspect also makes that a good fit for San Fran.
One last one on your way out the door, man. I appreciate your time. The Niners got 2, I think, really intriguing undrafted guys. And normally I would say, the undrafted guys, low percentage. But they've really almost hit better on their undrafted guys at times than they've hit on day one in the last 4 or 5 years. They got 2 guys. One guy, Isaiah Nayer from, started at Wyoming, went to Texas, got hurt, transferred to Nebraska, 6'4", 4'4" flat speed, a 35-inch vertical or 35-inch arm length, 83-inch wingspan, and 40-inch vertical. I mean, that right there, this guy's radius is off the charts. And the other guy is Stone Blanton, and who I know you've seen before, finished up this year for Mississippi State. Niners gave him $92,000 guaranteed. I looked at his game log, Cole. This guy made 14 tackles in games, 18 tackles in games.
Yep.
And I heard an interview that he did. He's kind of a, good old country boy. He's like, oh, shucks, and all this. What do you think of Nayer, if you've heard of him? Or I know you've seen Blanton. Is he NFL?
Well, Stone Blanton's an athlete. I mean, he played baseball at South Carolina.
Yeah.
And, that he was playing there when they were on the brink of just winning a couple national championships. Comes to Mississippi State, and like you said, just active, sees the football, kind of very similar to Jared Johnson that did it right before him, playing before him at Mississippi State. So it's just going to be flat speed and athleticism. Can he keep up with the other guys that are going to be on the field? But bringing him in as an undrafted free agent and maybe seeing what he can do on special teams and what he can offer you from a depth perspective could be some value on a roster spot there. Practice squad for sure. I think maybe you get a year or two out of him there and see what he can turn into. I loved watching him play. Hard-nosed, physical kid, fun kid to talk to, and obviously can help you. Isaiah Nayer is a really interesting one. You think about the guys that have come through Texas the last 3-4 years, okay? So the guys that were drafted this year, I mean, you could go by position, Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond. We've seen a couple of tight ends that were drafted. Carolina drafted like 5 Texas guys last year at running back, tight end, receiver. They've seen freak show athletes come through there at the skill position. The stories that the coaches told me about this young man and what he was physically capable of doing, jumping over guys, running by guys, just physically overwhelming defensive backs on a regular basis. We've seen a small bit of what he's capable of doing. It's just going to be availability. If he's healthy, I think he could find his way on the field. I think he can be a contributor. But he's going to have to consistently be healthy to go learn the scheme, learn the system, be around his teammates, and be involved to be able to utilize some of that skill. And then, too, you wonder if these repetitive injuries over time are just going to diminish what he's actually capable of. But what I have been told and the little bit that I have seen, because I can remember going back and watching his Wyoming film when he was coming to Texas thinking, how did this guy slip through the cracks? Because physically, you look at his height and weight, and then the way he moves, he can't be that big or that tall. Just the way that he changes direction, the way he attacks the football. So I'll just say this. It's in there. It's definitely in there. It's just going to be a matter of, is he healthy, and is he healthy long enough for the Niners to be able to get it out of him and then put it to use?
Man, it's been great to wrap with you. We'll let you go. Really eager to see what this season looks like for the Niners. I'll tell you what I'm really kind of eager to see. I'm eager to see if Kyle Shanahan can have any impact on Mac Jones. Because Mac Jones coming out of Alabama was playing on time with accuracy. He looked good. He was good as a rookie. Then New England was eroding. They started bringing in defensive coaches. He goes to Jacksonville. Something tells me he might play better football here if he ever gets on the field than he has played prior to being here.
I'm a Mac Jones fan. I'll tell you straight up. Great kid, somebody who understands how to put the work in. To hear the stories of him, making his girlfriend and fiance, study the game with them and quiz him on different things. So, I mean, listen, there's a lot of guys I'm excited about. Trent Williams is one of my favorite players in the league, of course. I love Ricky Pearsall. Covered him when he was at Florida. I think he's a do-it-all wide receiver. I haven't seen a more deliberate route runner come through the SEC in a while because he doesn't have the athletic ability that some others did, but he just found ways to get open and make crazy catches. And I think we talked about Jawan Jennings a couple of years ago, a guy that just Jeremy Pruitt raved about, was like that guy in the locker room always, like the one guy that held people accountable, did things the right way, biggest competitor he had ever had. So it's and I love the scheme too. I mean, I love how they run the football. I love the consistency in which the Niners run the ball, the mentality of wanting to run it. You have the most enjoyable tight end in all football to watch. So there's a lot to like there in San Francisco right now.
Cole, man, thanks for your time. We really appreciate you jumping on, and hopefully we'll do it again as the season gets closer.
I look forward to it. Thank you again for having me.
Cole Cubelic. We got more straight ahead. Stick with us.